Okay, you've really thrown us for a loop this time. Articles about copyright law, AI image generators, a vintage photo booth rental agreement. Don't worry, we're not judging. This is peak learner curiosity right here, and we are here for it. Today, we're tackling a question that's making waves from art studios to courtrooms. When AI helps create an image, who actually owns the copyright?
It's fascinating here is how AI is challenging the very foundation of copyright law. For centuries, this area of law has centered around human creativity.
Right. Copyright protects those original works of authorship, but we're used to thinking about those as books, paintings, music now.
Yeah.
We have algorithms churning out images, text, even code.
Exactly. And the legal system is trying to figure out how those centuries-old concepts apply in this new technological era.
Okay, so before we get into the AI art explosion, let's rewind for a second. Could you give us a quick Copyright 101 refresher?
Absolutely. At its heart, copyright is designed to incentivize creativity. It does this by granting creators exclusive rights to control how their work is used and distributed. The key phrase here is original works of authorship.
So it's not just about someone snapping a quick photo. There has to be something more to it. Some spark of creative expression.
Precisely. Think about it this way. A dance choreography, a recipe with a unique combination of flavors, a beautifully crafted piece of furniture. These can all be considered original works of authorship because they involve a degree of creativity and originality.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. But let's put this into context with a scenario our listener might relate to. Imagine this. You're on vacation, all set for that perfect family photo, but you need someone to actually press the button. Does that random tourist now own your vacation memories?
That's where things get interesting. Legally, the person who presses the shutter button does play a role in creating the fixed image. That action creates the digital file, which is considered the copyrighted work.
So theoretically, they have some claim to the image.
Well, here's where implied permission comes into play. If you ask someone to take a photo for you, there's a common sense understanding that they're not claiming ownership of the image.
So it's like they're lending a helping hand, not becoming the official photographer of your trip.
Exactly. But it gets even more nuanced when you introduce creative direction. Let's say you ask that passerby to get a specific landmark in the background or to make sure everyone is smiling.
You're giving them instructions, adding your own creative vision to the mix.
Right. And that creative input strengthens your claim to authorship. Courts often look at who contributed the labor skill or judgment to create the work.
That makes sense. So a quick snapshot by a stranger, maybe not your copyright, but a carefully planned shot where you're calling the shots, that's different.
Exactly. Now, let's say you decide to up the ante on your vacation photo op and step into a photo booth.
Oh, yes. Those strips of slightly blurry, always hilarious photos.
Photo booths are a great example of how copyright can get complicated. Who owns the copyright to those photos? Is it the booth owner who provided the backdrop and props? Or is it the user who chose the props, made the silly faces, and triggered the photos?
I can see where this is going.
Oh.
Two sides of the same coin, each with a claim to ownership.
You got it. And this is where those contracts we talked about earlier become really important. A well-written agreement for photo booth services should spell out exactly who owns the copyright to those images.
Okay, so always read the fine print, everyone. But let's bring this into the digital age. These days, everyone's about that selfie life. Hey Siri, take a selfie. But when you say cheese, who's the real cheesemaker here? You or your phone?
This is where technology really starts to push the boundaries of copyright law. It's like using your voice command as a remote shutter. The core principles are the same. Who chose the angle, the lighting, the overall composition of the image.
So just because I can tell my phone to take a picture doesn't mean I automatically own the copyright.
Yeah.
It still comes down to those creative choices.
Precisely. And speaking of technology pushing boundaries, it's time to address the elephant in the room, AI art.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We've talked about humans pressing buttons, but what happens when algorithms are the ones creating images, entire songs, even writing code?
You've hit on the million-dollar question, and the answer is not so simple. AI art has thrown a real curveball into the world of copyright law, challenging those fundamental concepts we discussed earlier.
It's like we're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Our current legal framework wasn't designed with AI in mind.
Exactly, and that's causing a lot of head-scratching in courtrooms and legislatures around the world.
Okay, so let's dive into this AI art dilemma. We've all seen the headlines. AI tools like Midjourney can create mind-blowing images from simple text prompts. But where does that leave copyright? If I type in a whimsical robot sipping tea on a cloud, Who owns that image, me or the AI?
That's the million-dollar question, and the answer might surprise you. The U.S. Copyright Office is currently taking the stance that AI-generated art in many cases isn't copyrightable.
Wait, really? So anyone can just grab those AI-generated images and use them however they want?
That's the current interpretation, yes. And to understand why, we need to look at a specific case that sent shockwaves through the art world, the case of artist Chris Castanova. Castanova created a graphic novel using images generated by Midjourney, one of those AI art tools. They then applied for copyright protection for the comic, but the U.S. Copyright Office denied their application.
They said no to copyright. Why? I mean, it's a graphic novel, a recognized form of creative work, right?
Right. But here's the catch. The Copyright Office argued that the AI, not Casanova, made the key creative decisions in generating those images. They focused on the fact that the AI system, not the human artist, was ultimately responsible for the composition style and overall look of the images.
So even though an artist might spend hours crafting the perfect text prompt, trying to achieve a specific artistic vision, the Copyright Office says, nope, it's the AI that's the artist here. That seems pretty controversial.
It is controversial, and it all boils down to that word we keep coming back to, authorship. The Copyright Office is sticking to this idea that if an AI is making those key creative choices, then a human can't claim to be the sole author.
Okay, I see where they're coming from, trying to apply these old rules to this new technology. But it still feels like there's a gray area here. What about those artists who say, hold on, I'm not just typing random words, I'm spending hours refining my prompts, experimenting with different phrasing, really trying to guide the AI toward my vision?
You've hit on a major point of contention. Where do we draw the line between using AI as a tool and having it be the actual creator? And that's a question courts are wrestling with right now.
It's like the whole debate about photography when it first emerged. Is it art if you're just clicking a button?
Exactly. Every new technology challenges our definitions and forces us to adapt. And this isn't just a theoretical debate either. There are real-world legal battles happening right now with huge implications for AI copyright.
Like that case with Getty Images, right?
Right.
That felt like a shot heard around the AI world.
Absolutely. Getty Images, a massive stock photo company, is suing Stability AI, the creators of the AI art generator Stable Diffusion. They're alleging that Stability AI used Getty's copyrighted images without permission to train their AI model.
So this isn't about one artist and one AI-generated image anymore. This is about the massive data sets that fuel these systems.
Exactly. These AI image generators are trained on billions of images scraped from the internet, and if those data sets include copyrighted material that was used without permission, it creates a legal minefield.
It's like building a house on a foundation you don't actually own.
That's a great analogy. And it's not just images. We're seeing lawsuits about using open source code and other copyrighted material in training all sorts of AI systems. The legal and ethical implications here are huge.
Okay, so this is clearly a complex issue with a lot at stake, but let's bring this back to our listener for a moment. This is all fascinating, but they might be thinking, how does this affect me? I'm not creating AI art or training algorithms on giant data sets.
That's a fair point. But here's the thing, even if you're not directly involved in creating AI-generated content, you're likely to encounter it more and more in your daily life.
It's everywhere you look these days. Social media advertising, even in the news.
Exactly. And as this technology becomes more sophisticated, it raises questions for all of us about ownership, authenticity, and even the value of human creativity. It's important for everyone to be aware of these issues and engage in the conversation.
It's like we're entering this uncharted territory where the lines between like creator and creation are getting blurry.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not just about the legal definitions of ownership. There are some really big ethical questions swirling around AI and creativity.
Right. Like if an AI can create a song that tops the charts or paint a picture that sells for millions, does that diminish human creativity? Is it even possible to compare the two?
That's what a lot of artists are grappling with right now. There's this fear that algorithms could flood the market with generic content, making it harder for human artists to stand out and make a living from their work.
It's that classic anxiety about robots taking our jobs, but this time it's about the things we create, the things that make us uniquely human.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just the marketplace. There are concerns about cultural homogenization. If algorithms are trained on massive data sets that reflect existing biases, will they just end up reproducing the same dominant narrative, the same limited perspectives?
So we're not just talking about AI replacing artists. We're talking about the potential for these systems to reinforce existing power structures and limit artistic diversity.
Precisely. And that's why it's so important to have these conversations to bring these issues to light. We need to be thinking critically about the data that's being used to train these systems, the biases that might be embedded within them.
It's like we can't just be passive consumers of this technology. We have to be active participants in shaping its development and making sure it's used in a way that benefits everyone.
Couldn't have said it better myself. As we become increasingly reliant on AI, it's crucial to remember that these systems are tools. They're only as good as the data we feed them and the intentions we bring to their creation.
It's a bit like that old saying, garbage in, garbage out. If we want AI to enhance our creativity, to help us explore new artistic frontiers, we need to be mindful of the data, the algorithms, and the overall goals guiding its development.
Exactly. And we need to make sure that artists from all backgrounds with all sorts of perspectives have a seat at the table.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into AI copyright, it feels less like we've reached a neat and tidy conclusion and more like we've opened up a Pandora's box of questions.
That's the thing about exploring the cutting edge. It's not always about finding definitive answers. It's about asking the right questions, staying informed, and being prepared to adapt as the technology evolves.
Absolutely. And on that note, a huge thank you to you for joining us on this wild ride through the world of AI and copyright. We've covered a lot of ground, from those vintage photo booths to algorithms that can create art in the blink of an eye. And to our amazing listener, thank you for sending us on this deep dive. Remember, the future of creativity is still being written, and your curiosity, your questions, your engagement, it all plays a part in shaping that future. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep creating